Rev up your engines!
Philip Micey says, Scotty, why don't Chinese car companies sell their cars in the U.S.? They've started doing it now. Of course, they got a gigantic market in China, so why should they bother? But they're starting to now. I see some of these electric cars that come over from China. I'm sure that's going to be a big deal, bringing electric cars over from China. They never really sold their brand. They say they put tariffs on them and stuff, and they've got their own market. They're making so many people in China want cars. I saw some special on educational TV the other day, and in some parts China, you got to be on a waiting list to be able to buy a car. So they're probably selling a lot of their own people and they don't want to send them out because they're waiting for them. But believe you me, they'll start selling them here. They already have. Not totally mass production, but I'm sure they will. Tyler 40 says, Scotty, what are your thoughts on a 2009 Mazda CX-7, 130,000 miles for $3,500? All right. I had a customer buy that same vehicle with about that same mileage for $1,000 more, and it was the biggest pile of junk he ever got because the engine was going up. Realized that back then, in 2009, Mazda had a relationship with Ford, and those engines had Ford parts in them, especially the variable valve timing, which would break and cost a fortune to fix. If you want to buy that vehicle, have a guy like me check it out with the scan tool, and have him especially check the variable valve timing with all the data on this fancy computer. And if it runs perfect and he says it's in good shape, I'd offer him $3,000 for it tops. But if he says no, it's got a problem, don't buy it, because that was when the engines had more Ford parts. The newer Mazdas now, they have a relationship with Toyota, and they have more Toyota parts, which is better. But back then, it was a Ford thing. Not a great vehicle unless you get it really cheap and a mechanic says it's in good shape. Nicotine Fiend says, Scotty, I got 2011 BMW 328i straight piped and my ECU crapped out. Is it worth buying a new one? I've never seen an ECU break on any BMW. Well, I have. I mean, you might as well. You got it. And, if you can get an ECU for it and have a guy reprogram it, you might try junkyards, and see what they say. Try Hemmings Motor News online. They can get guys sell everything there and see if anybody's got something for that. What the heck? It's straight pipes. They can run really good. They sound good when they're running. The BMWs are endless money pits, like I say, but if you can do it at a reasonable price, you might as well. Unless, if it's all worn out and everything, the body's bashed in and transmission's going out, don't. No, but if it's in good shape otherwise, it'd be worth it. Emmanuel Galna says, I got a 1998 Toyota 4Runner with 268,000 miles. I paid $3,000 for it. Was it good to buy? If it holds up, it was. Only time's going to tell you that, because, I had one over here last month that had 368,000 miles. It still ran like a clock. And $3,000 is nothing for those solid frames. As long as the frame's not rotten, everything looks good on it, that could be a fantastic buy. As long as it was taken care of, you take care of it, and it can last basically forever. Something like that, you could just keep fixing it forever too. This engine's strong. If it breaks, put another one in. Most of them have those automatics, those automatic transmissions. They can run forever too, so what the heck? And if you got one that's got the 4 or the 5-speed automatic transmission, they're even stronger. So hey, why not? They're gas hogs, but hey, that's the kind of vehicle that is. Antonio Ramirez says, Scotty, what do you think of an 04 Nissan Altima with 200,000 miles? Is it worth buying for $1,000? Okay, I'm not a fan of Nissan Altima, but, okay, it's an 04. That was only 4 years after Nissan was taken over by Renault, the French company, so they weren't that bad. And if it still runs and shifts okay, what the heck? Now, if you would have said it was a 2014 Altima, I'd say don't buy it, because they were junk. 200,000 miles, probably falling apart. But the older ones were better made. And if it does run and shift okay, for $1,000, what the heck? You don't get much for $1,000. They claim the average car is going to cost you about $3,000 a year to run and operate. If you can get one for $1,000 that lasts you a year, well, you made out already. Danny told us to Scotty. This is Danny from Canada. Found a CRV from the junkyard. It has 98,000 kilometers. Need to replace the front bumper and the reinforced bars. Is it worth it to buy? Well, okay. It's in a junkyard, right? It's not going to go for all that much money. If you can get it cheap enough, hey, that's only what? 40-something thousand miles. That's nothing. Get used parts or whatever and replace it. It can be a great vehicle. I had a customer do that with one and drove it 150,000 miles and didn't have hardly any problems at all. And you're in Canada, so let's say the air conditioning doesn't work because it got whacked. And you don't really need air conditioning in Canada. I lived in Toronto for 4 years, so it doesn't get all that hot there. Kudo says, Scotty, my Toyota Camry is 2006, doesn't take off quick, and the engine line stays running too lean. First thing you can do is check for vacuum leaks. You're sucking air when the engine's running, the hose fell off or something. That often happens. Change your air filter. That can also make it happen. Now, another thing is your mass airflow sensor can get dirty. I got a video. Make your car run better with a little spray cleaner, Scotty. Watch that on YouTube. You can get the mass airflow spray cleaner, can of it for $8-10. Clean it. You'll probably find that'll fix the whole thing. It often does. They get dirty, then it gets the wrong data, and they run lean. That's just what happens with that stuff. Sebastian Lee says, Scotty, what do you think of a 2008 Ford Fusion V6 with 80,000 miles? It's worth $5,000. Had a small scrape on the side. I'm looking at the SEL model. $5,000 for a 13-year-old Ford Fusion V6. You know, that'd be pretty high dollar. The low mileage, yeah, I mean, and they were well made. That's when Ford had a relationship going with Volvo. It was a fusion of a Volvo and a Ford technology. So they aren't that bad cars. That's a little bit high, especially if it's got a scrape on it. I'd say that thing was maybe worth $3,500, $4,000. Something like that. Maria Linas Gonzalez says, Scotty, what are your thoughts on a VW Atlas Sport? Okay, I drove one, and it was okay, but they don't hold up over time. That's the cheaper made Volkswagen, and they don't hold up over time. I could tell just driving it, it was somewhat cheaply made, a lot of plastic stuff, a lot of electronic computer crap. And they're zippy to drive around, there's no arguing that, but I know they won't hold up over time because they're modern day Volkswagen. And realize Volkswagen owns Porsche and Audi too, and they put all that high-tech race technology into their Volkswagen cars. So the Volkswagens aren't like the little old Beetles of the old days with a simple little 4-cylinder engine. You could change the oil with 2.5 quarts in a minute without jacking it up. Change the engine out in a couple hours. I mean, the new ones aren't that way. They're very expensive to maintain. Southside Lukey says, Scotty, should I buy a used Hummer with 230,000 miles? Depends on the Hummer and what shape it's in. If you saw my video, next door neighbor here in Tennessee, he's got an H2 Hummer. It's got 300-something thousand miles on it. Original engine, runs like a top. He paid $55,000 when that thing was new. I made that video about it. A guy in Saudi Arabia already offered him $65,000. That's with 300-something thousand miles. Now the H1s are too big, hard to park and everything. And the H3 is a rolling pile of crap, mainly made in Shreveport, Louisiana. That factory's been shut down for ages. So you wouldn't want that. But the H2s, you want to buy a used Hummer, you want to make sure it's an H2 and it's in good shape. And they are worth money, and they will hold their value. Believe me, they're only going up in value. And they can last an awful long time. Solid frame. These things aren't going to fall apart. As long as you check it. His, of course, was Tennessee, so there's no rust on it. But if you're looking at one up north, hit that frame. If the frame's rotten, don't buy it. But they're pretty solid frames. They won't rot unless you really don't take care of them. Jeffrey Hughes said, Scotty, what do you think of an 02 Honda Odyssey EX van with 237,000 miles, a transmission rebuild at 120? The guy's asking $1,200. All right. Let's put on our thinking caps. 120,000 miles it had the transmission built, and it now has 117,000 miles more. That tells me it's probably going to break again. Those are horrible automatic transmissions, and you didn't say replace, you said rebuilt. So, $1,200, you're gambling. Transmission breaks, you're going to junk it because it's not worth fixing. That's your choice. Now, they're decent vans. If it runs okay and it shifts okay now, hey, maybe it'll last a while. $1,200 is nothing. Just realize the first transmission only lasted, 120,000 miles, and you're 117,000 miles more. Might not last much longer. 1980s fan says, Scotty, what's your opinion on the Ford Aerostar van? All right, they're not great vans, but they're not terrible vans. They can be okay vans. You can get them dirt cheap used. If you get one that isn't 200,000 miles, it might still have some good life left in it. Don't overpay for one because eventually the transmissions go out, and when the engines go out, it's real expensive working on those vans because of their setup. Realize they build the vans on the frame and then they drop the bodies on top of it. So it's very hard to do a lot of work on the engines without pulling them out of the car, which is a big job. CRA55 says, Scotty, what's your opinion on an '08 Lexus GS Hybrid V6, 250,000 kilometer, 2 owners, hybrid battery changed 2 years ago by the Toyota dealer? Made the mistake of test driving it and fell in love. Yeah, they ride great. I am not a used hybrid fan because things cost money. If 2 years ago the battery was changed, you're not going to think about that for a long time because generally the batteries on those things last at least, 10 years, and that one lasted what? 2 years ago, 11 years. So what the heck? Why not? They are great vehicles, you know. They're really great vehicles. Don't pay too much because it's got mileage on it. But the problem I found with Lexus is I got my wife's Lexus, the ES300, with 65,000 miles for $3,000. And nobody's going to find a deal like that again, right? But my wife has it. She fell in love with it. So I said, well, next car we'll get. No, she says, if this thing ever wears out, I'm getting another Lexus. So I spoiled her. What a mistake by me. But it was only a $3,000 mistake in the beginning, you know? I wasn't thinking ahead. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.